Oh,
Okay, thank you.
Hello, Nashua.
you have the same problem?
Yep. Good evening. The Personnel Administrative Affairs Committee is meeting on Monday, December 9th, 2019, at 7:17. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman at Large Kelly is here. Alderman Ben Clemens. Alderman Lopez. Here. Alderman Gidge. Yeah. And our chairwoman, Alderman Karen.
Here.
Great.
And also in attendance is Alderman Klee. Thank you.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. Thank you.
Two, if anybody cares.
Do we have any public comment? Looks like there's none. Okay, communications.
There's none.
Okay, we are going to do some interviews for the Conservation Commission. Mayor, would you like to join us with Josh Hauser? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're
members of the
welcome.
committee. I'm nominating Josh Hauser as an alternate on the Conservation Commission. Josh is a recent graduate of Daniel Webster College. He's been speaking with and working with Sherry Dutsey, who's the chair of the Conservation Commission, and has expressed to her an interest in serving on the commission as an alternate. He has attended a number of the meetings. He's actually involved in web design and other activities in his work, so he can actually help them with some of their public communications. He's very interested in helping to preserve the environment and Nashua's wetlands and the like, and therefore he will be a strong nominee. But I will let Joshua tell you a little bit about himself and about his interest in the commission.
Okay, thank you. Josh, you have the floor.
Thank you. So really, I guess, to summarize what Mayor Doncha said, is that I'm more interested in joining the commission because of a background in scouting, which kind of interested me in conservation in general, where I used to teach outdoor survival skills and kind of helping scouts learn to appreciate the outdoors. So I like to kind of bring that with me where I go, an idea of leave no trace, for anyone who's familiar with the Boy Scouts. And then with web design development, I'd spoken with Sherry Dutsey several times on how to kind of promote interest in different activities that people could take with the outdoors in Nashua, such as like geocaching as an example, and updating the website, making sure it's more user-friendly and people can quickly and easily tune into what's kind of going on with the Conservation Commission.
And Josh is an Eagle Scout, so.
An Eagle Scout. Okay. What
I
was your
didn't quite
project?
make it that far. I'm far short of that. I made it beyond tenderfoot. I know that much, but.
I wouldn't tell people that, Mayor.
You made second class.
So, do we have any questions for Josh from any member of the committee? Alderman Lopez.
So you obviously got your environmental science merit badge because you couldn't get Eagle. Leave no trace. There's two schools of thought. There's plan ahead, make sure you bring biodegradable, easily prepared things. And then there's incinerate everything in the fire. You're the first school of thought?
I am the first school of thought.
Okay, good. Do you have ideas for engaging the Boy Scouts? Maybe Eagle projects or?
Yeah, especially with just keeping trails especially clean and clear. I know in my hometown in New York, just trail maintenance was a huge community service project that would help scouts get their hours for making rank.
Mm-hmm. What about conservation, like helping make sure trails don't get washed away? Or?
Oh, absolutely, that too. That we did a lot of that at the Boy Scout camp I worked at, just putting in means to prevent erosion, just little rock trails. If there's any buildings that would like have water dripping onto the road or pathways at camp, we just kind of bordered it with rocks so the water could dissipate more cleanly.
Good, awesome, because some of those trails are getting ready to fall into the canal. So.
Anyone else? Alderman Kelly.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment, thank you for coming forward for this. I was also a Girl Scout, but I'm also on the Conservation Commission, and I've done that for the last 2 years. So it's been really interesting to see what kinds of things they do. Because I think you initially think like, oh, like clean trails, but there's also a lot of wetland buffer stuff and impervious surfaces, and everybody on the commission is very engaged and has a very different thing that they bring to the table. So it sounds like you would also have that. So thank you for stepping forward.
Thank you.
Alderman Clee.
Yes, I just wanted to also make a comment. I'm glad you brought up the comments about different things, activities they could be doing, like geocaching and so on. I think it's a good exercise of getting to know the area and the environment and getting people out there to see what we have, and I think just things like Greeley Park and all the other places around. So thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Lopez.
Just curious for Alderman Kelly, did you get the Gold Award or senior?
No comment.
Okay, no further questions.
Thank you.
How far did you go in the Boy Scouts?
I'm an Eagle Scout, obviously. What a kid. Oh, so you didn't, oh, sorry, forgot.
Okay, we'll come back. So
We
Josh,
digress.
thank you for offering to join the Conservation Commission. Have you attended any of the meetings?
I have. I've been in attendance since July, with the exception of this month.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Okay, then we will take up your nomination later on in the meeting. Thank you for joining us. Thank you. Okay, so next, the Board of Registrars. Mayor, you have nominated Adriana Lopera?
Lopera.
Lopera, I'm sorry.
Come on up. So this is Adriana. She is a graduate of Columbia University and a master's in public health from BU, I believe. She works in the field of public health up in Concord for a nonprofit that is particularly engaged in working with various state agencies and various state boards on the opioid crisis and various treatment efforts. She's lived in Nashville for 2 years, lives in Ward 4, I believe. So therefore is a constituent of Alderman Lopez. She has been very active in trying to expand voter registration, which is one of our goals. We'd like to do more outreach. We're working on getting into the high school through the school board right now, but also some of these fairs and the like where a lot of people gather. We may be able to do expanded registration efforts, trying to get everybody registered. And therefore, Adriana, I will be a strong nominee for the member registrar of the Board of Registrars. And again, I will let Adriana tell you a little bit about herself and why she is interested in this particular board.
Thank you. Adriana.
Hi, good evening. So as the mayor mentioned, I lived here. I've lived here for 2 years, but I've registered to vote in 3 different states. And so I understand the challenges of getting folks registered. And I am looking to become more civically engaged. I'm very passionate about voting. My own father just got the right to vote when I was in college. So I am really interested in working at the community level and meeting people where they're at and getting more people civically engaged. I'm also bilingual, which I think would be really helpful in the city.
Okay. Alderman Lopez, I didn't even have to look.
And obviously, I have to express my support.
Of course.
So Adriana's been very involved in the community. Seen her at the Latino festivals. I've seen her helping various political campaigns. And I agree. I think she'd be great. At one point, I tried to get her to apply for public health, but there wasn't an opening. But she's very qualified. She's very intelligent. She's very engaging with people. So those are all qualities we need. And even the night that we had that standoff down the street where there wasn't anywhere for neighbors to go to the bathroom or warm up, she was willing to let them have access to her apartment just to do it for that night. So she's very community-minded, very giving, and I look forward to her nomination.
Thank you. Alderwoman Kelly.
Thank you. I would echo all of the things that Alderman Lopez has pointed out. I also know Ms. Lopera personally, but I did actually have a question. I've been working with the Youth Advisory Committee, and the registering high school students has come up quite a bit. I know the mayor mentioned it. I don't know if you had any ideas on how we can get that, but it's been a consistent conversation probably over the last year, at least with that committee for sure.
I would definitely, most students who are turning 18, it's their senior year, and so there's a lot of events celebrating that they're seniors, and why not have some sort of events celebrating that they've turned 18 and are able to register to vote, perhaps in the spring towards graduation, because by then most of them will have turned 18. So I think making it an event, like you're an adult now, you can join the military, why not also register to vote and go to college and all of those exciting milestones that we think of when we think of graduating from high school.
Thank you.
Alderman Clee.
Thank you. I love that idea. And I think in New Hampshire, it's 17 and a half that they can actually register 6 months before they turn 18. So by the time that they're going to graduate, so an idea of doing something like that in the springtime, you would probably be able to capture all of them. I think that's a wonderful idea. So thank you.
Anyone else? Well, we thank you for offering to sit on this board. We need new people, and I think it's wonderful because some of your ideas to advance voting registration, whether it's young or old, is a great thing for us to be doing in the city. So we will take up your nomination later in the meeting, and we thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. As always, good choices. Okay. Application to license hawkers, peddlers.
There's none.
Okay. Appointments by the mayor. Would you like to make a motion?
I would like to move to recommend the confirmation of the appointments of Paul Laflamme as a member to the Auditorium Commission with a term to expire December 31st, 2021. Adriana Lopera as a member to the Board of Registrars with a term to expire December 31st, 2021. Josh T. Hauser as an alternate to the Conservation Commission with a term to expire December 31st, 2020. The following members to the Hunt Memorial Building Board of Trustees: Stacy Baxter with a term to expire December 31st, 2024. Tammy Crisp with a term to expire December 31st, 2020. Charles Matthew with a term to expire December 31st, 2023. And Rosalie McQuaid with a term to expire December 31st, 2021. The following members to the Zoning Board: Estafia Boraz with a term to expire October 1st, 2021, Jean-Paul Boucher, Mary Ellen McKay, and Rob Shaw with terms to expire September 11th, 2021. Jonathan Courier with a term to expire September 11th, 2022, and Steve Lionel with a term to expire September 31st, 2022.
Okay, you've heard the motion. Any questions, concerns?
That was amazing.
Thank you.
Read through all the reappointments.
I was nervous.
Okay, all those in favor
Aye.
signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion carried. New business resolutions?
There's none.
New business ordinances?
There are none.
Tabled in committee?
019-062, prohibiting the use of tobacco products near city-owned buildings and in city parks.
Okay, are you recommending final passage?
Sure. Sounds
Okay.
good.
Remove it from the table?
I think we have to take it from the table first, yeah.
Yes.
I move to take it from the table.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
And
So-
then I will move to recommend final passage.
right. Okay, discussion. Alderman Lopez, we'll start with you
Yes.
first.
I support this. I think smoking in recreational areas, in designated specific areas, such as out here at City Hall, we have an area that literally says smoke here. I think there's enough of an accommodation for people who are going to smoke. I think in our recreational areas, one of the number one types of litter you're likely to find on the ground is going to be, cigarette butts. So whatever we can do to reduce that. Cigarettes represent fire, danger. Cigarettes aren't necessarily a good thing to have around kids if they're playing in recreational areas, so I support this.
Alderman Clee.
Yeah, Thank you very much. I appreciate this time to talk. I couldn't make it to the other meeting, but one of the things that precipitated this for me, which was the parks area, was the issue that we were having. I was getting calls from constituents in the tot lots and like Sargent Street Park, where teenagers and even adults were sitting on the swings or by the children's area, and children with asthma and so on like that having to put up with the cigarette. And as Alderman Lopez had brought up about the cigarette butts being there, and one man had told me about how his child ran over and there was still a lit cigarette and picked it up. And that was it was his 5-year-old, and he was saying that he was going to stop bringing his children to the park. And that was quite disturbing to me. So that's why I put it through as I did with Alderman Schmidt and so on. And then the building portion of it, when people were complaining that they had to go through the tunnel of smoke because people would be standing outside smoking before they walked into the door. And it lingers. It tends to linger, and it's unhealthy. So thank you very much for this.
Alderman Kelly.
Yeah, I'm going to support this. I think this makes a lot of sense, and as a mom, I have heart for having parks that are not covered in cigarette butts or ones that are still burning. I think when we talked about this last, I did mention that I think it has to be a combination of this, but also more receptacles that pull people away from the building. Because actually, if you walk outside City Hall, they're right up against the building, which is why people smoke there. So I think this makes a lot of sense, and I think having signage instantly just makes people think about it. But we also need to, and the beautification. Do you remember the woman who came before us? She wanted to buy some of these for this exact purpose. So I'd love to know if that happened.
Don't think it did, but.
It may not have been
Yeah,
this committee,
yeah,
but
maybe
she
somebody
came.
else.
Go ahead.
Wait a minute.
Okay, sure,
Okay.
sorry.
I'm done.
You're done? Okay. Alderman Clee.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And I would like to add one of the things that we did learn about signage. And so, for instance, at the library, because there's so many entrances towards the library coming off of all the streets in the parking lot and through the park and everything like that, it's where do you put those receptacles? That becomes really one of the hardest decisions to have to be made. But I agree, we need to put them at the 30 feet, 50, whatever it is, and let people know, no smoking beyond this. It's one thing to put it by the building in case they go by without thinking for them to put it there, but that shouldn't be their first point of contact to put out their cigarette. It should be further away. And so, yeah, I agree that we need the appropriate signage and the receptacles to safely extinguish these rather than throwing them on the ground.
If I could just reply.
Alderman Kelly.
Thank you. I'll do a little bit of legwork because I do remember that presentation. I want to remember who it was, and she was coming before us to ask for this specifically. So I think it would be good to just know where it landed when we talk about this.
Thank you.
So,
Anyone
thank you.
else? Okay, so I'm going to speak. First, to the sponsors of this, and believe me, I have no, that's not the issue, is about smoking near the buildings. Did the sponsors of this ordinance speak to Public Works concerning all these signs that you're looking for them to put up all over the city? That's number one, which is a huge expense because they don't make signs in-house anymore. The other thing is, my concern is someone smokes because people don't obey the laws, no matter what they are, and someone sees someone smoking and they get into an argument thinking that the police is going to come right away. I don't want to see that happen. The police aren't going to be in and out of the facilities constantly. I know, like, Gurley Park could be a major issue. They do ride through there, especially in the summertime. But I just want us to be very cautious that because we put this in doesn't mean people are going to obey this law. So we really want, my first question, and the answer to my first question is needed before anything else? Yes, Alderman Clee.
I would like to address that. Actually, I'd like to address all of them. The first one about Public Works. I reached out to Public Works and I did talk to them about it. And you're right, there is quite an expense to all the signs and the receptacles and all that. That's why I said it was quite. Where do you put them? You know, it's going to. This is going to take a lot. As far as the the enforcement of something like this, as you pointed out. It's kind of the similar situation that we have with dogs not on leashes in Mines Falls, in Greeley Park, and all these things like that. We all know that the police are not going to go around, they're not going to go ticketing, even though there is a fine to any of these things and so on. It's, I guess, it allows them, if they need to, if there becomes an issue, to use this as that. I did not reach out to Chief Carrigan or any of his staff on that particular thing. I think it's because I looked at it very much as the dog leash law. We have a dog leash law. We've had it in play for a very, very long time. But you can walk through Mines Falls, you can walk through Greeley Park, and you will see dogs off leash. You can remind people about it, that they shouldn't be doing it. The truth is, I would have had no problem if this had been shrunk to specifically in children's areas, like the tot lots or around the playground areas. But again, one of the things that we ran into conversation with our Department of Health, as well as that, is where do you put up the signage? Where do you say this is that? So that's why we went with a more general no smoking in the city parks. But I do agree and I do understand it's going to be a very difficult thing to enforce. And we can't put this burden on our police. They have enough to do. I'm hoping that people will police themselves. Just like we say you can't smoke in a city building and we tell them please extinguish this and take it outside. I'm kind of hoping that we become a society that'll do that. I know that's not realistic. You know, I'm very open to that.
Okay, so first, so the other thing is, the Public Works Commissioners have oversight of all our parks and playgrounds. The Board of Aldermen have oversight over Gurley Park, basically,
Right.
because that's what's changed. So if this passes tomorrow, in a couple of weeks, then they will have to decide how they're going to do this because of the cost and where they're going to put them. And I agree, maybe the tot lots are the places to look at, or near the pools, or
Right,
whatever.
exactly.
But we just want to recognize that, because I know
Absolutely.
back when, 10 years ago, they tried to do this for state, and they turned it down because they felt it was, number one, the cost factor of putting signs up, and also policing it, because people have the tendency to think that the police are going to come right in a minute, and they're not, because there are other things that they have to deal with throughout the city or the state. So I just, want people to understand that, all right? Because, yeah, you can police yourself. I mean, I think most people know there's no smoking in any buildings today, any public buildings, restaurants, or anything like that. So it's a matter of getting that receptacle at the beginning of the walk, not right by the door to put your cigarette out. So that's my, so those are my two concerns. So as far as the overall, proposal, I don't see it as an issue, but it can turn into craziness. But I'm going to let Alderman Lopez, because he's been waving at me, to speak. Alderman Lopez, he
thank
wants
you.
to get into a,
So regarding
debate.
those comments, the ordinance, as I understand it, only says a sign has to be placed at each location, so it doesn't necessarily state every entrance to or from.
it doesn't say that.
I think there's some value in having a universal rule, because then you don't have to explain every single application of it. So if you have signs that just say parking or smoking is prohibited, in national parks or on national public property, then it will become known in the city that, oh, I'm on city land, I'm at a city park, you don't smoke at parks, that type of thing. I think that would be more effective as a deterrent than having an adequate number of signs, because people are just going to be like, okay, I don't care about a sign. But if they know that there's no park Like, all of the parks in Nashua have the same rule. All of the public buildings, don't do it within 30 feet of it, which it's just a good idea. I mean, having less fire starting not in your doorway is generally like, that's why you can't have your grill on your deck, or on your balcony. I think having it be a universal rule would probably be more effective. And I mean, in terms of enforcement, no littering is a $188 fine, $288 fine, and I don't really see neighbors getting into fights over that. I think it's just going to be repeat offenders who are doing it all the time might encounter police at some point when they're doing it, then learn the hard way not to keep doing it.
You were so optimistic. Alderman Clee.
Thank you very much. One of the things that I can tell is I've been sharing this with the public and constituents and so on. The only true pushback that I got from that was when people talked about smoking in the outdoors, where it kind of wafted away and there was no harm. But I've learned from talking with Board of Health and doing my own homework is that there is still a lot of harm that happens to the environment, to the animals. And the litter literally is the biggest issue with those filters. Animals eat them and children pick them up, and it becomes literally a danger to our society to have something like this in our environment. So I agree. I think we're still going to get people that are going to say, the heck with it, I'm in the outdoors, I'm going to do it. But we're seeing change. We're seeing change in our society, and I think we have to move towards that. But thank you.
That's okay. That's why we have these conversations. But the thing is, Alderman Lopez, you still have to understand, it's the Board of Commissioners for Public Works that decides where and how many of these signs get put up throughout the city in our parks and playgrounds. We just have control over Gurley Park. And as you know, there is 1, 2, 3, there's at least 4 main entrances to the park. So you either have to put up one big sign or 3 or 4 little, small, normal size sign. I'm not looking to
Well,
debate.
I have a question.
Okay,
So I know.
no, let me finish thank you. So we just want to make sure that people understand, this is if they vote on it in a couple of weeks, and this goes into effect, that this does not mean that the police are going to be in and out of Gurley Park or Shady Lane or whatever, looking for people who are smoking. You have to hope that people try to obey the law, and they see something that's changing, that they obey this, and then and put their cigarette out. No, should they be smoking? No, but unfortunately, it's here. It's been here forever and a day, and now we have this vaping, which never should have come on the market in the first place, but that's a whole other issue. We have no control over some of these things. We can only hope for the best when we do them. So I just wanted to, make sure that we all understood that, because I don't want Public Works to think that we're going to expect them to put out 100 signs in 2 days or whatever, because it is a time-consuming project. No, I'll let Alderman Lopez
Just one
speak
more thing to
first,
add after
because
I was just going to ask, should we refer this to Public Works? Can a committee do that?
yes, we could, but that means it's tabled. And if you table it any longer, it dies.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Because we're at the end of the year. So if you think because I'm sure, even with this being passed December 23rd, nothing's going to get done till spring because of the fact that they're not going to be they can't dig holes in the snowbanks and what have you. So if you think this is something you could table so someone could have a conversation with Public Works, I don't have a problem with that either. But that's not because I didn't sponsor this. So you and Alderman Clee are both sponsors. If you think that, I think most of the aldermen are here, will be here in 2020. So, but that's not my decision.
Alderman Clee is the originator, so I'll defer to her.
Well, myself and Alderman Schmidt, before I forget, I had to write it down here. One of the things that we did put in here per Public Works was to make sure that this legislation didn't take effect for at least 90 days. That would give them time to, and I just went and checked to make sure it says legislation shall take effect 90 days after passage. I have no problem even putting longer than that, 120 days, to give them time to decide what and how, because the ball is in their court to make those decisions. I'd prefer not to see it tabled, but I think if it's the pleasure of the committee, or if they feel that it's necessary, it could be done. But I would just, the truth is that perhaps something this important should not have been brought back but it was precipitated by calls. I mean, not just one or two calls. It was many calls that I was getting about the park, and I think it's a worthwhile bill. But you are the committee that has to make that decision. So,
Alderman Kelly.
So I am not the originator, but I don't see why we need to table just to figure out what's going to happen with signs.
Yeah.
I think the idea is, do we want this? Great. And then we can talk about what is appropriate from a budget standpoint, and also a level of work for Public Works after the fact, because I don't think it would be so huge that they would want us to not do this.
So where we have a 90-day before this starts, you're talking about March, approximately March, it gives you and Alderman Smith and Alderman Lopez a chance to have a conversation with Director Photo as to how they would implement the signage for the various locations throughout the city. It's in force, and that gives you an idea of what's going to happen. It gives them 90 days to work on a plan for what's going to happen. So I appreciate the fact about tabling, but if you table it, it dies. So I think that at this point, you vote yea or nay, and then let it go from there. And just make a note, to have a conversation with them. Anyone else? Okay, so the motion's on the table to a final passage of ordinance 0-19-062. Do we have further discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes. All right, any discussion? We have no public, so no comment. Remarks by the alderman. Well, I thought this was a great meeting. No non-public?
you missed one.
Oh, he wants
Oh,
to make remarks.
I'm sorry. I guess I didn't look up.
No, I put it up right when you look down.
Oh, thanks, Alderman Lopez.
He pointed.
Alderman Lopez.
I just want to let the public know that we're having a memorial vigil for homeless people who passed away in this past year. Typically, it's on the longest night of the year, which is the 21st, which is a Saturday. So instead, we're having it on December 23rd at 6 p.m. on the steps of City Hall. So if you have somebody that you know has passed away that you want remembered, then just reach out to me and let me know, and I'll include their names or nickname. And if you can attend, then that's December 23rd at 6 p.m., City Hall steps.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, do I have a motion?
Move to adjourn.
Okay, Alderman Kelly has moved to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, and we are adjourned at 7:50 p.m. Thank you, everyone, for coming out.